Welcome, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. I am your host, Eric Anthony. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you are watching this on YouTube or listening over Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like an episode, share an episode. It always helps. Now, without further ado, I'm very happy to have today's guest on the Omniverse. He's an old friend of mine. He's Mr. Sketchelmania himself, the Fastball Special podcaster, the man behind SlamPress Tomes, Martin Slam Duncan. Buddy, welcome back to podcasting together. How are you?
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. You're fresh from hosting your first comic event at Heroes Tale this past weekend. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. It went very well. Absolutely, and it's only going to get better. I mean, when I say that, I'm assuming that we're going to do this as a regular thing. But the Heroes Tale out in Cambridge, Ontario, hosted a Halloween horror bash or monster bash, and we had about 10 different artists come down to do sketches and to sell their books. There's a big store-wide sale. We had some cosplayers there, and we had a ton of like on-theme food. We actually had like Frankenstein cookies and Frankenstein Rice Krispie snacks and all sorts of stuff. So it was a really good time.
That's great. So you're now you're getting into the con coordination as well. You're going to be hosting Comic Cons next.
I don't know about that.
You could add it to the resume. You're a publisher, podcaster. You got the video channel. What doesn't Martin do? You skateboard?
Yeah, I skateboard. Yeah, so the way it basically worked out was Andrew Salter, who owns the shop, The Hero's Tale. We had chatted before. I actually tabled at his grand opening earlier this year, and he was very open to do some sort of promotion for the Frankenstein Visions Kickstarter, which I'm sure we're going to get into in a little bit. But
100%.
But essentially, he said, "Yeah, carte blanche. Do what you want." And I figured, hey, let's just make this into a little sort of mini Comic-Con / promotional / Halloween event. And we had a bunch of the folks that were on the book and some of the folks that weren't on the book, but wanted to come out and support. And it was really successful. So I'm hoping to maybe do it again next year, just for, again, fun. Just coming up, just to give him a quick shout, he does have another event coming up in November 18th. And he's a huge supporter of indie comics. So this is a Creators Con that he's doing. And I'll also be tabling at that. And the guest of honor will be Gail Simone. So should be really cool.
That's very cool. That's fantastic. How was he able to get Gail Simone? I guess reaching out to her? Or she's not local.
Apparently Gail doesn't say yes very often, especially for comic stores. Like, it was a very rare thing. So this is not something that you're going to be able to check out all the time, right? She's been at a few cons, but she really rarely does comic stores. So I'll have to ask Andrew how he got that to happen.
That's awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's good. It's good to have things to look forward to, and also to see you have another hat to hang on your shelf of all the things that you do. Your martial arts instructor, like, you name it, Martin can do it.
It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. I would say it's a lot of work, but I had a lot of people help out. As with all these things, I didn't do it all myself. We had a ton of people. My sister came in and helped with the baking, and I was sitting there making sandwiches for everybody, and we had other people bring in like coolers with pop and stuff. Like, it was all like a sort of community event kind of thing. So it was a good time. It was definitely a good time.
That's good. That's awesome. I gotta try to come out to the one in November. That sounds fantastic. Okay, Martin, let's get into this. We're halfway through the launch of the Kickstarter for Frankenstein Visions as we speak right now. We got 10 days to go. This episode will be up, and if you go up on Kickstarter when this episode is up, it should say 9 days to go. So we can still get this book funded, which it will be funded. but tell us about what the book is, who's involved with the book, and what we get when we support this book.
Okay, so just to step back a little bit, so Frankenstein Visions is a sequel to uh, Dracula Visions, which I kickstarted a couple years ago, was successful. Had a
Yeah,
lot of
very successful.
had a lot of praise. As a matter of fact, I'm almost run out of all my copies from that initial run. I might have to go do a second print.
That's
And
awesome.
very, very, very proud of that. But basically, what it is, it's first and foremost an art book. So one of the things is we didn't want to essentially retell the Frankenstein story. What I wanted this to be is a celebration of a lot of the artists, a lot of local artists. We about 90% are Canadian actually, and the other 10% from the States. Um, so what I did is we took various quotes from the original Mary Shelley text, and we distributed the quotes among the artists. So each artist got a quote, and then they did an art piece that is inspired by said quote. So the way I kind of explain it to people is think about bringing a sketchbook to a Comic Con that has a theme.
Mm,
So say I had a Superman sketchbook, and then I had a whole bunch of
mm,
artists do their rendition of Superman. Similar to that, but we're not just necessarily focusing on Frankenstein's monster, although there's a lot of Frankenstein's monster in this. We are focusing on, again, inspiration derived by the various quotes in the book. So we have different characters in there. We have, we even have someone who decided to draw Mary Shelley herself, which is
mm.
fantastic as well.
That's so cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
the first Dracula book was such a good idea because I think what a lot of people may not know, me being your buddy going to cons together, you have a couple of sketchbooks that are like themed
I do.
for particular characters. So it only made sense that you would be like, of course, that's a great idea to find an IP like Dracula or like Frankenstein and to be able to do something very authentic and yet diverse in all of its interpretation. So it's absolutely genius. Your Conan sketchbook is one of the best that I've seen. You've got some gems in there.
It's actually
um,
sitting in Nick Marinkovich's house right now. He's doing a Conan piece for me. But yeah.
oh man, that when is Conan gonna be a public domain character?
I think uh, I'm definitely going to be doing something with Conan. What it is, I want to say it's in
Right.
three to four
Right.
years. I got to check, but it's coming up. Now that said, it's kind of an odd one because there is some copyrights like from
Sure.
I think Titan, but the original like Robert E. Howard text will be starting to come into public domain. Now that what I mean by public domain, that's really specifically for the U.S. because in Canada it actually already is in public domain. In the U.S.,
Mm.
I think it's 100 years after the author passes, where in Canada it's a little sooner, like 75 or something like that. Yeah, but
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, if you could use the images that you've got, like that you've paid yourself all
Oh,
these years in your collection, that'd be a beautiful book. Yeah,
absolutely.
because you got
Yeah.
some Conan artists from that, right? You made it like
Oh,
a habit to anyone who drew Conan, you made sure you got a piece from them when you could.
yeah. My very first commission that I ever paid for, because I just didn't. I guess I didn't understand the value of it, but this we're talking like 20 years ago. I've gotten quite a few commissions since then, but the first one was by it was a Conan the Barbarian by Ernie Chan. And if you're a Conan fan, Ernie Chan, he was more known as an inker on the Savage Sword of Conan. Like he inked over John Buscema's stuff, and he drew a lot of his own stuff. But he is one of the original sort of Conan artists. So I was really happy to meet him. It was a little con at a hotel, and he was in this corner, and I just went over and started chatting with him, and I'm like, yeah, let's do something. Um, and so he did the drawing, and then after he's like, hey, I really want to ink this. This is a pretty cool drawing. And I'm like, okay, but I don't have much money. I feel like such an idiot now for saying that, but he's like, okay, just give me an extra like $15 and I'll ink it or something like that, something ridiculous like that. And it was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So we inked it. So I have a full like Ernie Chan inked Conan that I pretty much got for his song. And then unfortunately he passed, I think, a year or two after that. So I was very fortunate to meet him for that. And then after that, I got the bug and I started getting a bunch of commissions from people. And yeah, and I guess that sort of I'm sure that had something to do with why I came up with the idea for the Visions line. Um,
Yeah.
Aside from all the contacts that I've made over the years with artists doing all these various shows and things.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense that through the years you've curated sketchbooks of your own and gotten to know a lot of these artists through Sketchomania and through all the different cons that you've been going to and panels you've
Hmm.
hosted and whatnot. So it's interesting for me to now wonder, how did you pick the artists that you wanted for this particular book? Because you've got 35 artists this time around. There's more
38
artists on
artists,
this,
38 artists on
38
this one.
artists.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So
that you've got to get that.
yeah, so
Yeah, go
there's
ahead.
a bit of criteria. Now there's a few things that I want to do is I want to make sure that the type of art is very diverse. So what I mean by that is, we have different backgrounds. A lot of them are comic book artists, but some of
Mhm.
them have also been in other fields. And I also have artists that dabble more into the traditional painting, traditional watercolors. We have our pencil and inkers. We have digital artists. On Dracula, I had an artist that came from the video game world. So we had, yeah. So I wanted to get a nice diverse cast. Secondly, obviously it's great to have huge names on the book, so to speak. Like very famous comic artists. But I was kind of more interested in people that are more passionate, particularly about the subject. Um,
Mm,
and that made a big difference to me, right?
makes
So
sense.
I wanted to make sure that people knew the subject, were passionate about the subject, etc. So that was really huge for me. And I've had a sense of a lot of the art already, just again by knowing these artists, by seeing them draw, knowing their backgrounds. So that helped a lot. Um, in terms of the selection process, the first book was a lot harder in a way because I really did not have any published books prior to that. So in order for me to go out, I had to essentially earn the trust of all these artists,
Yeah.
and pitch something that's, I guess, a little unusual. I know art books aren't unusual, but um, a lot of folks sort of were shaking their heads and thinking, well, are you just doing Dracula? Like, are we just doing? And I'm like, no, we're not doing Dracula. We're focusing on we're using it as an overarching theme, but it's going to be specifically an art book that's going to celebrate your style of art and how you interpret those particular quotes. Um, so that was a bit of a pitch, and we had to sort of reiterate that a lot. The other thing too with these books is it's very difficult to get away from the universal monsters or the movie versions of these
Right. Right.
IPs. They're all burned in our heads, so I had to be very clear.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm looking for your version or closer to the original text. So the first one was a little bit harder to pitch, but I was lucky enough to get a really great crew. The second one, this one that's in Kickstarter right now, Frankenstein, was, I would say, a little easier because essentially the Dracula Visions book became my resume. Right, so people would ask, what's this about? Well, here's the Dracula Visions book. We're essentially doing something like this, and it was a lot easier to conceptualize with people. Um, and that being said, because I guess Dracula had a little bit of a buzz going for it, it was a lot easier for me, quote unquote convince artists to be a part of this. And as a matter of fact, I've had
Yeah.
a lot of artists approach me to be on Frankenstein, which was a
Mm.
big turn of events, which was wonderful. Like I've had people come up and show me their portfolios, and it really felt surreal,
That
right? I'm
must be
like,
really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it felt very surreal because I'm like, especially when you're starting out, I'm like, especially since I'm not an artist either. But it was, it feels good. It means that not only I think so, but I think other people realize that we're onto something here, and these are special projects.
Yeah, I think there's a universal appeal to these characters because they become global icons in a lot of ways, whether through European literature, North American literature. It's transcended, right? So, and like you said, there's been the Hollywood versions that people are familiar with, but then
Hmm.
that right back to the book horror of it that can be interpreted in its own terrifying way. So with something like Frankenstein, what did you do different this time around in the preparation of making the book? Because like you said, the first time it was your go at it. I know you had some people on deck who were helping you, like Sam Noir was a big help in
Yep.
getting things
Oh, and he
together.
still
But this
is.
time
Yeah.
around, and he still is. Shout out to Sam Noir.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the things this time that maybe you learned from the last time?
Oh,
Like, let me try to do something more, improve on,
I mean, you
if there are
have,
any, because the
yeah,
first
you
project
have,
was great.
there's a learning curve, a huge learning curve. I was able to, I guess, prepare a lot better for this because I was trying to avoid some of the mistakes from the first time. Um, and I guess some of the key things is that um, I knew all the questions that were coming out the first time, and I was able to sort of encapsulate all the key pieces of information that I had to give to the artists, right? So I was able to, here's the 20 key things that you need to know about, being a part of this project. And that helped immensely because it was all there. Here's what the dimensions were like. Here's what the template looks like. Here's a copy of the original book. These are the timelines. All those sort of things. Now there's always things that come up, but they certainly helped. It certainly helped to have at least an initial one under my wing.
What's the hardest thing putting something like this together, other than managing all of these artists? But like, how do you make sure that you're able to? Because you had a goal to put it out at a certain time of year as well, right? You're trying to get this
Oh
whole
yeah.
theme together that people are in the right mood. So how are you, just for other people who may be interested, how do you manage something like
So
this to make sure you reach your goals?
I would say honestly, and this is going to sound a little weird, but the book almost sells itself once someone
Mm-hmm.
is aware of it and aware of what it is. Um, and that's probably the hardest part for me right now is getting the word out. It's not, I have all the confidence in the world in terms of the quality of the book and the quality of the publication and the art, and it's absolutely beautiful. I think the price point is right. We were able to keep it as low as possible. I never put any of the art behind a paywall. So for example, I have all sorts of different tiers. So I have the soft covers, I have the hard covers, but every piece of art that you're going to get on that hardcover is going to be in the soft cover. So if you're just there, to read it, to enjoy it, then go on the lower tier and get the soft cover. If you're a collector or you want something maybe on your bookshelf that's a little nicer, they get the hardcover. But either way, you're not going to get any difference in terms of the art pieces. So
And yeah, the
um,
content is all the same. It's just what format you
exactly,
want.
it's just the format you want. So like I said, what I find, I found that I was very successful in the con circuit, um, because I wouldn't say I'm aggressive, but I will chat with anybody that comes by the table, and I'll just explain what the book is. And most of the times when I do that, people are like, "Oh, that's super cool," right? And they
Mm-hmm.
they pick it up. even if they're not necessarily horror fans, they might be fans of a lot of the artists that are in there, and they have an opportunity to see something from those artists that they not necessarily see regularly because they're maybe more into like the superhero genre.
Yeah.
So that's big. So in other words, going back to your original question, the hardest thing right now is really trying to get the word out. We're doing the regular, Facebook posts and Instagrams and things like that. But again, things like this podcast is going to help sort of let people know what this is about, and then drive them to the Kickstarter page. Once they go to the Kickstarter page, you'll see a ton of information and a ton of images from the book, and I think most people will be very interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even listed the murderer's row, as you put it, of artists that you have coming onto this book, whether they're long-standing stars of the comic book industry or if they're up-and-coming people whose work, some of the work in here from maybe people you've never heard of before is
Yep.
just incredible. Like the cover from, is it Paul Lemenjenko? Is that his
Paul
name?
Lemenko, yeah. Paul Lemenko.
Paul Lemenko.
Yeah,
I mean, terrifying, and you're like, how did someone draw that? How did he,
his piece, he was actually one of the first ones to finish their piece. And when he we what we do is we have like a little bit of a chat amongst all the creators, and what I like to do is as we get the pieces in, and of course if I get the creators blessing, we post it up there, and it caused such a buzz when people saw that yeah, it was very, very cool. And as a matter of fact, because it was such a powerful piece, what I like to do is on the softcover version, and I did this on the Dracula one. I reserve one of the soft covers for one of the pieces that come out that are just particularly strong, that particularly gives off a buzz amongst the social medias and things like that. And Paul Lemenko by far really captured that earlier on. So we do have a specific Paul Lemenko cover that's actually doing very well on the Kickstarter based on the strength of that piece. So he got that spot on the Frankenstein book. Andy Belanger got that spot on the Dracula one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who else can we will we find in the pages of this Frankenstein Visions?
Let's start off. So Ken Lashley is going to be doing a hardcover. He's actually got the hardcover cover. So we have actually a rough. He's still working on it. He's like a very, very, very busy person. But I promise you, he's gonna absolutely
I mean,
kill
it's
it.
Ken Lashley.
It's Ken Lashley, guys. Like, yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
He's
Yeah.
especially if he's gonna have a hardcover image for this
Yeah.
book, he's gonna kill it. Yeah.
He will
That's
kill it.
that's the copy I bought because I have the first hardcover of the Dracula Visions, and I said I can't have the soft cover with Paul's image. I'm like, I want that cover.
I
That's a
know.
beautiful piece of art, but I need the hardcover to match. I'm a sucker.
Yeah, Ramon Perez did the hardcover for Dracula. So now we have
Yeah.
Ken Lashley, so great company. Adam Gorham's back. Adam Gorham's going to be doing one of the covers as well. So you might know Adam from
Beautiful.
Marvel, Rocket
Hmm.
Raccoon, Godzilla, all sorts of IPs.
Valiant work. Yep.
Valiant. Yeah, so he's going to be doing a soft cover. Richard Pace, who is new to this book, did an incredible cover. His is going to be actually the main cover that we're doing. And you could actually see his work up. As I mentioned, Paul Lemenko has the fourth cover, the third soft cover, or fourth cover. And then we have just a ton of other artists. I could just name them off. So Kalman Androsovsky is going to be on it. Ho-Che Anderson. We pulled in Jason Lowe into this project. Jason Lowe, his career has just exploded in the last few years.
Yep.
Marco
Current
Rudy.
Marvel artist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So he's done. I think he's done Venom and After Lit, and he's an Eisner Award winner and all sorts of great stuff. Marco Rudy, who's done Spider-Man, Swamp Thing. Megan is new to this project. Megan is again another artist whose career has just exploded. She does a ton of covers and a lot of Star Wars covers. So check out her Star Wars stuff. But she's in the book. Legendary Tom Grummett, who is a legendary Superman artist. I actually met him out east, and he agreed to be on the book. David
That's great.
Ross. David Ross also agreed. He's Marvel. He's
Avengers,
done
Iron Man.
Punisher, Iron Man, Avengers, Daredevil, you name it. Tony Moy, he's a fantastic painter. John Delaney, he's one of the guys that kind of reached out to me in a way, because I met John Delaney at the Dracula party at the Raid Studios, and he pitched me exactly what he wanted to do for Frankenstein before I was even going out and telling people I was going to do this. So he was definitely on the book. Nick Marinkovich, as I mentioned earlier, who's coming off the very successful Dead Roman series with Fred Kennedy.
Oh man, yes.
So he is someone I met at Fan Expo, and I sort of wined and dined him in a way, and he agreed to do it. Again, I think mostly because he's such a Frankenstein fan. Ingrid Gala, who's a phenomenal artist. She did a lot of stuff for Something Is Killing the Children, things like that. Neil Vokes, who's a not only fantastic artist, but he's kind of our horror guru in a way, because his knowledge of this stuff is incredible. I could keep going. Do you want me to keep name dropping?
Okay. Keep name drop. You know what? Because
right,
you're saying some people's you're saying some people's names where I'm like, oh yeah, oh wow, like, and then you know that I've seen some of the pieces, like from when me and you did the panel for Frankenstein Visions at Fan Expo. Marco Rudy's piece was just incredible.
Absolutely.
And yes, keep going.
All right, let's go. We got Jeff Ursherwood. So Marvel's Conan. He's known for his Doctor Strange, his Namor.
Yeah.
David Day just blew me out of the water. He is one of the three brothers of the Day family. You might be familiar with Gene Day. So he is So wow. He did such a fantastic painted piece. Ron Sutton. Vira, Mistress of the Dark, Carson of Venus, Sandy Carruthers, another horror guy. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I was very interested in getting
perfect artists.
A lot of these perfect artists for this. Sandy Carruthers, who worked on the original Men in Black comic book before it became a movie. Cool. Emmanuel Chanteneuf, who's worked on a lot of indie items, Captain Canuck as well. Samuel Agro, who's done a lot of work as well. He did some storyboard stuff for Saw. Katie Sawatsky from the Raid Studios, who's done Sea of Sorrows from IDW. She also has an amazing upcoming book, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. I don't know if you recall, but
I remember off the top of my head, but yeah, her and Kyle J. Smith are coming together. Yeah.
There's some fantastic work coming that way. Sean Daly, who just
Sean Daly, our pal. Yes.
Sean Daly just came off of a successful Samurai Grandpa Kickstarter himself. Daniel Govar, who's done a lot of storyboard layouts for Wolverine, Spider-Man. An amazing painter. Becca Kenzie, of course. Joe Shuster Award winner.
Becca's piece, I just felt there's something about it that speaks to me, because I feel it isn't about the grandioseness of it. It's just that you can feel the emotion of her piece coming through Frankenstein. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it hit just right.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I love the background. It's like it's kind of like a nuclear explosion cloud burst background. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, she killed it.
Absolutely. We're on the last third here. We're almost done. We have we have Becca Kenzie. We have Jim Terry, who our mutual friend Mike Ruth introduced us, and man, this guy did a killer piece. Very reminiscent, and I'm not a big fan of comparing artists, but I think in this case it works. Very reminiscent of Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein version, which is really great. Nick O'Gorman, um, who's done a ton of H.P. Lovecraft adaptations. He's done a ton of them. Our friend Jonathan Kochiba, who's worked on Cauldron magazine. Some guy called Shane Heron, friend of the show. Uh, Also call Morris, Cauldron Magazine, Andrew Dorland, Kelly Williams, who's a big horror head, Mark Putenis, who is the most Canadian American that I know. That's how I introduce him, but he's really great. Keith Grachow, also, I think it's Grachow, who
I think
also
so.
is local artist and is also doing these. Just a little shout out for Keith. He's doing these artist teaching lessons at the Hero's Tale on Saturdays. So check that out.
Oh, very nice.
Andrew Clark and James Dixon are two amazing artists from out east who I also met this summer when I went to do Freddie Beach, and they were nice enough to join us. And Kevin Manclow, who is another recommendation from Mike Ruth, and he absolutely did a fantastic job as well. So that just those guys, really, just those 38,
just those folks.
just those guys. Yeah,
It's for the names that are recognizable, people know what those artists can do, and they know that they're top tier professionals, right? Especially someone like let's say a Jeff Isherwood or the Dave Ross and
sure.
folks who have been in comics who like they know how to put what they need to put on the page. But then folks like Mike Ruth or what Marco Rudy did, and they're recognizable names as well, but the book, like the quality and the styles that you're going to get, like a Tom Grummett piece, and then you're going to get the Paul Emenko piece, which are very different, but
Yeah.
you know that they're going to be so unique when it comes to a character like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to not bring their A game on this. It's
Oh,
going to be a great book.
and they all did. And I think the part of it is, like people kind of waited a little closer to deadlines because they kind of wanted to see what the other person was doing. So if you look at stuff like I'm trying to think of someone off here, like Megan, for example, she has a very sort of cartoon, very clean type, clean lines type style. Which again, sort of conducive to like a sort of a cartoon type style, but looks really good. And then you're going to get someone like you said, like a Jeff Sherwood or a Paul Emenko who does like more of a like a realistic painted type style, which is really cool. And then like an Emmanuel Chanteneuf style, which is a little bit reminiscent of manga in a way. And totally went in a different direction. Decided to paint Mary Shelley herself, or to draw Mary Shelley herself. So, yeah, all different kind of styles, and I wanted them to lean into that.
Yeah, no, the stuff I've seen so far has been remarkable. You're going to be getting a quality book. If you want to see more, some of the pieces that are, check out the Kickstarter page for sure. Back the project, but also on the Omniverse Comics guide website, we've got a feature and a video of all the different art pieces that you can check out as well. If you want to do a teaser there, be sure to look at these pieces because the art is phenomenal. Whether it's Dr. Frankenstein himself or the monster, it's just so many different cool ways that you're getting a feel of the Frankenstein world and era, whether it's that real old school horror or like this. Oh, I forgot who. I'm looking at the pictures now as they flash on the screen. Yeah, man, great job at picking the artists. Honestly, Martin, it's
Thank
such a
you.
beautiful book.
Yeah, and
What are some of the sorry, go
sadly,
ahead.
I was gonna say sadly, I had like a bunch of artists did approach me sort of a little very close to the deadline, and I said unfortunately I can't. So, but I do hope to continue doing the Visions line. So, assuming we get this funded, there'll be more opportunities for sure for different artists. And there's a lot of artists that I always want to work with. I mean, I want to work with everybody, don't get me wrong, but but I want to be able to switch out the artists on every book so we get sort of some new, like sort of fresh takes on some of these. So I don't think I'll have more than like 50% of returning artists for any of these books, so you could really get a different sense for these.
That's great. What are some of the tiers that people, like you've mentioned some hardcover too, but what are some of the different things that will come along with the tier sets that people can back if they do
Yep.
back the project?
So that was one of the things that was you were talking about learning. I wanted to really pare down the offerings to make it very straightforward. Um, so
Mm,
it's just pretty much just like there's still quite a few tiers, but as straightforward as I can make it, given the amount of offerings that we have, right? So of course, you could, even if you go in and you pledge $1, it helps. It's weird, but it helps with the algorithm on these things. Even if you're thinking you just want to pledge $1, put it on there. It gets more numbers up. It gets out on social medias a bit more. But of course, we have our wallpaper. We have our PDF of the book itself. If you're just looking for a digital version to have. And then we have 3 soft cover tiers, right, for the 3 different covers. So we got our regular Richard Pace cover, we have the Adam Gorham cover, and then we have the Paul Lemenko cover. And then finally we have the hardcover, which is the Ken Lashley one. And then we get
nice.
into some of the combo stuff. So all the
Martin, I think you hit your microphone down just a touch. You gotta
Oh,
bring it
sorry.
back up a
Can you hear
bit.
me better now?
There you go. Yeah,
Okay,
that's better.
sorry. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. See, I get
No, good.
excited. I get excited. I'm talking to hands. Okay, sorry. So I was saying we got the books. If you just want the book, and every physical um, reward will also come with the PDF version as well, so you can see it digitally and physically. But beyond that, the new offering we have, which I'm pretty excited about, are these really cool like woven tote bags that'll have some of the art on it. Um,
That's
really good quality
cool.
bags. So I'm doing 4 versions of the art um, that you could choose any of the versions. So you could get a tote bag with a book or as a standalone. So that's one of the combos. And then we also have the catch-up one. So we have the Monster Mash, the regular, and the Monster Mash collectors. So really, the difference between those two is if you haven't gotten the Dracula book, you have your opportunity now. Any of the Dracula books that we have left over, we put them on here. So, for example, you could get the soft cover of the Dracula and the soft cover of the Frankenstein, and we threw a few extras in there like collector's coins and pins and things like that. But the best value, honestly, at this point, and what looks like we only have 8 of these left, is the Grave Robbers collector set. So this one we're really proud of. It's $150 value for 120 bucks, and that's Canadian. So if you're from the US, it's $87 US. Um, so what you get is you get the Ken Lashley hardcover, and it's going to be signed. You get the Richard Pace regular softcover signed in this one. You get a risograph by Emmanuel Chanteneuf. Risograph, if you're not familiar with it, is similar to like screen printing books. So it's a very special print that we're doing. Will be signed and numbered. Jason Lowe has also agreed to sign a print from his piece. In addition, you also get the wallpaper, the PDF, and you get 6 mini prints, and that's all for 120 bucks. So that's probably the best value. If you want all the covers, if you're a cover cover
Mhm.
lover, a cover, if you're a cover, and you want all the covers, right? We have a tier called "We Have You Covered," and that's essentially the 3 soft cover books and the hardcover book, which is very popular as well. People are really into getting those. The what I call the baller tier, which has everything, um, including a Frankenstein statue, which will be hand painted. Of course, everything else like the Ken Lashley, the Emmanuel Chanteneuf, you get all 3 versions of the soft covers. You get the mini prints. That is also available. Um, which is called the sum of all parts. So it goes from, like I said, you could put $1 on this thing, or you could go all the way up and get this kitchen sink, whatever works for your budget. But we definitely we definitely back the quality of this book, and I think that if you do decide to get a book, you're definitely going to enjoy it.
And not to sound, cheesy to try to sell this for you, but this is a real collector thing. This isn't like a phony, get yours now while supplies last. This is really
Oh
special
no,
with what the
yeah.
prints that you're getting, the stuff that you're getting here. It will be limited. It will be worth something to have these artists' prints signed and limited edition versions of this first printing of Frankenstein Vision. So it is worth the value, especially the ones with the bust, the gold coins. Like it's a pretty cool tier packages that you're handing out there because it's art based, right? And people collect art or that limited thing of it. That's the whole point.
Well,
Sorry, you're gonna
yeah,
say
and
something.
you're absolutely right, and I'm not joking when I say like these, like I'll do a run and I'll do a few more than we get on the Kickstarter, so that I could sell them at conventions and things like that. Although if you wait for that, you're not going to get all the extras that you're going to get on the Kickstarter. Um, but once the run is done, I'm not going to do another 4 covers for this book. I'm going to do one. So if you don't get those, if you don't get that Paul Lemenko cover, and you don't get it, almost immediately after we print it, you're never going to get it. Right? Like you're going to have to get it on here, or you're never going to get it, because I'll probably just do the regular print or the regular cover. And even that, I'm already talking about, because we're thinking about a second print. I might even change the cover on it. So you might not ever get those again. So definitely worthwhile getting.
Yeah, and if for those listening, and if this like check out the art for what we're talking about, because these covers are beautiful covers of any book, but the Paul Lemenko cover, it's so breathtaking that if you only get this one chance to get that copy,
Yep.
seriously,
Yeah.
it jumps out at the page and you really think, oh, this is what Frankenstein would look like. And it
Yeah.
isn't your typical universal monster version. It's
Oh
terrifying.
no.
It's beautiful stuff, man.
It's
I don't know
terrifying.
how he does it.
It looks painful. It looks like
Yes.
it's so bizarre, the way he did it. It's in an amazing way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely worthwhile getting those, and I think that's why, like, that particular tier is done well, because people have seen that art. Now we have a few art that we haven't shown yet, like the Adam Gorham and the Ken Lashley, but I think when they come out, people are going to be very surprised and shocked at how good they're going to be. So
I
don't
can't
miss out on
wait.
those either. Yeah,
I can't wait. I'm getting the hardcover, like I said, but I'm
yeah,
thinking about getting that Lemenko cover because
yeah.
it is that dope. It's really nice.
Um,
Okay, I want to ask you something in regards to both of the projects thus far, because you're not a person who's doing this because you just see an opportunity. You're a genuine fan of this stuff. You love the genres of horror, of comic books, but specifically that was the one thing when we'd go to cons, you were into the horror stuff, and I was like,
mhm.
I'll stick to my superheroes over here. But you're a
Oh yeah.
legitimate horror expert, whether it's the movies, the books, the so what did you learn in this process about the characters? In this case, Frankenstein, but even Dracula. What's something that's like, I used to see these characters in this way, but because maybe this artist's rendition or interpretation of it, you kind of learn things about those characters that maybe before it never came to the surface, if anything. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
a
I mean,
uh,
interesting question. I guess as a part of this, going into these, of course, I revisited the original books, and I did and I, just because I'm pretty busy, I've got a lot of stuff going on. I actually listened to them on what they call audiobooks, and yeah, I really got back into them when I did the Dracula one. Um, it's funny. Anybody that was in that chat was laughing at me because I just literally watched almost every movie version of Dracula. during the whole process. And I'm kind of doing something similar with Frankenstein as well. So I not only went through the books, but also kind of went more into the lore of that. But with the Frankenstein one, not only did I get interested in the book, but I also got very interested in the story of Mary Shelley, the author of the book. Which is a very interesting story as well. She was obviously lived in a time where being a female writer was pretty much unheard of. As a matter of fact, when it was originally released, she did not have her name on the book, and a lot of people thought that her husband actually wrote it. Again, because it was it was I guess it was that time where women were just not allowed or to do these type of things, and she was able to break through a lot of those barriers to do this. And as a matter of fact, like a lot of people consider the modern Prometheus or Frankenstein to be, the original sci-fi novel, right?
Hmm.
It is a classic in every sense of the word. And although I love the Dracula character, it's very close to me. I think that the Frankenstein novel is superior in a few ways. I love both of them. Don't get me wrong, but I do find there's just something about it. There's a sadness to it. There's a lot of elements that will touch you, touch your compassion for the creature, and there are even elements where, like, I'm not a big fan of Victor himself, who created the monster, but there are elements in there where I kind of see his point of view. Um, so it's such a well written book, and it's a study of characters and narcissism, and there's all sorts of themes about it. I mean, people have written so many things. Alison O'Toole, who's doing the forward for a book, actually wrote a number of papers on Frankenstein, and she was nice enough to do our forward for this book. So check her stuff out too. She has her own Frankenstein homage book as well, if you get a chance.
Yeah, I think that's what's really cool about this second book that you're publishing through Slam Press. That's so cool to say that. Martin's publishing another book, but it's cool because these characters, these iconic properties that are public domain and can be interpreted from any company, really. I mean, Marvel and DC have their own versions of them within their little universes, et cetera, et cetera. But there is something with Frankenstein, particularly, that I think is. I haven't read either of the Dracula or Frankenstein books since I was a
Hmm.
little kid in like junior novelizations, but it seems like there's more relatability to the story of the doctor who creates the monster and then the journey of the monster, that everyone can kind of find a piece of themselves
Yep.
in this story, of
Yep.
whether it's the pain, the isolation, the misunderstanding, um, worldviews. So
Yep.
I think it lends itself to, with the artists as well, capturing aspects and personalities of the characters within the story to kind of bring about an idea of how they see those characters, or what they're expressing, right? It's got so much layer to it. I don't know if Dracula is as multi-layered as a Frankenstein would be because of the psychology of what a character's going through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Dracula's got some fantastic what they call set pieces, like scenes in the book. But there's something about like the monster, his basically his rejection, um, which everybody's felt at some point. It's one of those things that is just heartbreaking, especially rejection from like a parental figure, for example, um, and him just trying to make friends. But he has a lot of these obstacles, and really everything that he's trying to do is really with the best intentions. But he's just driven and beaten down by really a savage world to becoming a monster.
Yeah. And just the old-fashioned idea of this character being stitched up and put together
Hmm.
and brought to life in this what's the word? It's not even occultish. It's some sort of science, pseudoscience that doesn't exist yet,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
As far as the world is concerned. So it's really cool. And seeing some of those pieces, I remember Marco Rudy saying that he kind of identified his Frankenstein in his understanding of the Incredible Hulk, which is interesting because, the
Sure.
Incredible Hulk is oftentimes compared to Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but you can also see exactly this relatively gentle personality, perhaps, but being put into the wrong emotional spectrum can become very, very dangerous with Frankenstein and
Absolutely.
the Incredible
Like,
Hulk, right?
absolutely, there's parallels between those characters. I mean, Hulk, all Hulk wants to be is left alone and go about his life, and because of his appearance, similar to Frankenstein's monster, he's unable to do that. He's unable to have a peaceful life, and that's all he wanted. He was not looking like he was created to be greater than humankind. He's supposed to be 8 feet tall, extremely muscular, able to withstand climates that humans couldn't withstand. He's very intelligent. One of my favorite parts of the book is how he actually learns how to read on his own through watching people, right? Because he's literally thrown out almost like a child, right from the
Mhm.
beginning, and he has to reason and learn how to do things. He has to
Mm.
learn how to eat. He has to learn how to speak, how to communicate with people, how to etc. And it's very interesting, and it takes a very strong intellect and will to be able to do that. Um, so yeah, uh, lots of parallels.
Is I could be completely wrong just because I'm Frankenstein centric right now, but is he kind of like the archetype of that someone like the Thing, or definitely like an Edward Scissorhands, but all of these characters that are fully formed yet grotesque and misunderstood just upon
Yep.
appearance, that is like does King Kong predate Frankenstein's story? Because again, that's
Oh
kind of like
no,
that
no.
similar thing of
Frankenstein
leave
came
me
out in the
alone.
1800s. Yeah, Frankenstein
Yeah,
was the
right.
OG.
So it's
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like
yeah,
this is the OG of that sort of
yeah.
misunderstood
Frankenstein's
monster
story has been
story.
used over and over and over and over again. Right. And again, this is why it makes it such a classic. Because it's such a strongly themed book. Um, people still use Frankenstein in university courses and it's incredible to think of a book that's been out for over 100 years. Um, it still has that type of impact today, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and and there's so much imagery in it that of course it blends great to this sort of project, the Frankenstein Visions. So it
Yeah.
allows it allows people to tap into some of that. You could see a lot of
Yeah.
different scenes. There's like the Paul Lamenko's is obviously a rage, right, of the creature. But then you see something like Jason Lowe's where he's sort of sitting by a brook. I don't know if you've seen that one, but he's sitting by the water, very sort of contemplating things. There's the scene that John Delaney did where he's at the house. This is the house where the old blind man is, and he observes this family. He wants to be a part of something like this family, and it's the first time he actually learns, what love is all about, and something that I'm thinking he's never going to feel. And it's
Mhm.
absolute. You can see his piece. It's absolute despair. So you see all the
Mhm.
different emotions in a lot of these pieces.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Okay, Martin, before we wrap up, one more time, when we go on Kickstarter and you type in Frankenstein, a bunch of Frankenstein possibilities pop up. What's going to separate Frankenstein Visions from anything else that people might find to be associated with the Frankenstein monster? Why should they
Yeah.
pledge and back your project?
So if you do that, I'll say, and again, I'm not putting down any other projects because they're just different, right? So
Right,
to be
of
clear,
course.
a
It's
lot of
just separating, right?
yeah. So
Let's
separating the
yeah,
project, you're gonna see a lot of potentially retellings of the story, right? Where they'll take the original text and they'll add some potentially some art to it and things like that. Uh, you'll also see people taking the characters and then telling their own story with them.
of
I
course.
think I saw
Yeah,
recently there's a at the end of the book, spoiler, there, he basically goes off in the Arctic to die, right? And sometimes people sort of take that and then sort of run with, well, what would happen if the creature was,
yeah,
still lived
yeah.
and etc. So you might get some of those type of stories. I think there's one like that actually kind of interests me now. It's like a Frankenstein barbarian type character, um, but this one
No, they're all
again,
cool. Yeah,
yeah. So with this one itself, this is again all about the art. It's all about taking these little snippets and creating an amazing imaginative piece that encapsulates that vision of what the artist feels when reading those quotes. So I think it's a little different. I personally haven't seen anything like it out there.
no,
There might be,
no,
but
it's true.
I've never seen anything like this. And even if there is, these will all be unique to this book.
Yes, especially because of the, like you said, the murderer's row of artists that are going to be coming through to lend their talents to it.
Yep.
Check it out, folks. Hit up Kickstarter. Go on to Martin's Instagram, SlamPress Tomes. Press the link. Check out the art that's on it. Be sure to pledge and back this project because it is deserving. It's a great book, and we want more to be made in this Visions line that you're doing. I can only imagine what could be next, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
have
have
some stuff
ideas?
cooking. I absolutely I
Okay.
pretty much
You
landed
always
in I pretty much already landed in what I want to do.
yeah.
The focus is Frankenstein. Um, but I
Okay.
pretty much landed on what the next one will be already too.
All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to support this Kickstarter for Martin. Follow us on omniversecomics.guide. Visit the website for your comic book reading orders and Kickstarters that are announced that are currently running. This one we've got a little bit more than a week left for Frankenstein Visions. So be sure to check it out. Let's get this one funded. Martin, we're gonna do it. And regardless, I'm looking forward to this book because it's gonna be beautiful.
All right, I
No, we're gonna
appreciate it.
get it done.
Thanks for talking with me today.
Oh, anytime, buddy. Anytime you want to come on, we could talk comics, we could talk shop. It's been a minute, but for those that haven't heard me and Martin before on Cave of Solitude, we've got plenty of episodes there where we've been podcasting for years together. We're OGs doing this, man. So it's so
Hmm.
cool to see you publishing books now. Now you're gonna be organizing cons. Oh
Uh,
man,
can I give one more plug before we go?
of course you can. Of course you
So
can.
I am going to be sharing a table with the wonderful, amazing Becca Kenzie this coming weekend, the weekend of the 27th at Frightmare at the Falls. So this is
Woo!
a horror convention, strictly a horror convention. All the guests are horror related. So if you're interested, if you are a horror fan, come check it out. I cannot wait. I'm just excited not only to table there, but to meet everybody. And there's a whole bunch of guests that I also want to meet there as well. But come check it out. Come say hi. If you have any questions about the Kickstarter, hit me up. I'll happily chat with you. And yeah, just come say hi.
That's great. Martin, I'm so happy for you guys, really. And shout out to Becca Kenzie. She's been a guest on the show as well on the Omniverse. Uh, Nothing but success, buddy. Nothing but success.
Thank
Let's
you.
do it. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more Omniverse Comics Guide podcasts, videos, reading orders, you name it. And let's go fund that Frankenstein Visions. Ta ta for now. Later, Martin.
Later.